Kamala Harris at the DNC convention gave one of the craziest speeches you will ever hear, where she essentially promises never-ending conflict and never-ending war. Kamala Harris's speech was so bloodthirsty that Lockheed Martin stock prices skyrocketed after she gave it. In a speech that could have been written by Dick Cheney, Kamala Harris engages in the classic NEOCON tactic of dividing the world into good guys and bad guys, where the United States are the good guys engaging in war and conflict against the quote-unquote bad guys. Kamala Harris names Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea as the evil countries the United States must bring to heel.
That America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I helped mobilize a global response, over 50 countries, to defend against Putin's aggression. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un, who are rooting for Trump.
Ma'am, it is you, the United States and the West, that are funding and facilitating a whole-ass genocide. But they want to convince us that Russia, China, and Iran are the bad guys? All the countries that Kamala fearmongers over are the countries that want to hold Israel accountable for their genocide. Meanwhile, in the speech, Kamala Harris reiterated her undying support of Israel and how she will continue to support them during their genocides and acts of terrorism.
I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself.
Kamala Harris married her AIPAC babysitter, but you guys thought she was going to be different on the issue of genocide? What do you guys expect for someone whose policies are being written by BlackRock? Palantir, an AI company that helps Israel with targeting during their slaughter of the Palestinians, and have been pushing for conflicts against Russia, China, and Iran, enthusiastically endorsed Kamala Harris. BlackRock, Palantir, Lockheed Martin. It's clear who will benefit from a Kamala Harris presidency. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for the imperialist war machine. This is another example of why the Democratic Party is the most effective evil.
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, we are back. We are back. What a week it was like last week, wasn't it? It's great to be back in production. We are back with another banger show where we're going to cover, because I was losing my mind this weekend, and throughout the course of the DNC, I was driving Rome crazy, following what the psychopaths of the DNC is saying. While the Democratic Party is pretending they have an election based on round joy, they dropped one of the most hardcore neocon right-wing policy platforms that we've ever seen, essentially condemning peace. And I want to bring in friend of the show, host of the Jimmy Dore Show, who we got a chance to meet in Chicago. We crashed their live stream. That was very fun. Thank you for making time and joining us today. Jimmy Dore, welcome.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me out. It was great to meet you in Chicago. That was a blast.
Yeah, it was great to see you on the ground reporting, talking to the people, being amongst the people. There were a lot of people who went to Chicago and they would stay in their studios, for example. So it was great to see you among the people. It was great to crash the stream. I want to get your impressions because I was talking to Kit. He interviewed me. He was asking me about Chicago. I was like, man, I couldn't really get the real Chicago while I was there because Chicago was essentially a police state. They had so much stuff locked down in order to protect the war criminals. I was on the ground covering the protest. Before I get started, I'm going to cover more of Kamala's insane agenda. But before we get started, I want you to get your thoughts and your time covering the DNC, your overall impression of it. It was very bleak, in my opinion, but I want to hear from you. What's your thoughts, Jimmy?
It was super depressing. When I was at the last time I was at the last Democratic National Convention they had was in 2016 because 2020 was COVID. So in 2016, you would go in to the convention hall and it was wonderful because half the people in there, half the delegates were Bernie delegates, meaning they wanted to overthrow the establishment of the Democratic Party, and they saw the corruption and they wanted to get the corporate money out. And so there was a lot of friction, and which is what a convention is supposed to be. It's supposed to be about ideas clashing and friction, but that's the opposite of what this was. These were a bunch of brainwashed, brain dead zombies who didn't care anything about policy or didn't care anything about the country. All they cared about was being invited to prom, because that's what it felt like. And they're honest to God, that's what it was. I talked to people in there and I'm like, hey, what do you think about there not being a real primary? And they're like, what are you talking about? There's a primary. And I said, well, what about they moved it from Iowa, New Hampshire to South Carolina? They rigged it again, right? They wouldn't let people campaign in New Hampshire and in Iowa, or else they would take their delegates away. They wouldn't put other people's names on the ballots in at least 4 states. I go, and then even after that, Joe Biden gets 14 million votes. And then they force him out and they pretend he stepped down. He didn't step down. He got threatened and he got forced out. They were going to 25th Amendment his ass. So he got kicked out, which was it was all a show. That whole convention was a phony show. When he comes out and speaks on Monday, we love you, Joe. We love you. We love you so much that we kicked you out. Nobody ever loved Joe Biden. Joe Biden's always been a punchline to Democratic politics. Nobody ever liked him. It's just all garbage and bullshit. It was the same kind of garbage and bullshit when you saw Michelle Obama get on stage and say, my parents were always suspect of those who took more than they needed. Hey, son of a bitch, are you kidding me? You've got 3 giant mansions. You've got a house 48 acres on Martha's Vineyard. You got another mansion in Chicago, and you just bought a mansion in Maui where you had to get a cutout because it's against the law to put a seawall. Isn't it funny? All these people like the Obamas are warning us about climate change. All these billionaires who are warning us about climate change, they keep buying beachfront property. Isn't that something? So then he puts in an anti-environmentally friendly seawall. And why is that? They have a law against that because it erodes the beach down the road, and he doesn't care. So that's what's going on. So those people, he went into the White House penniless. He came out worth $80 million. They're now worth $180 million. She gets $750,000 per speech, and she's up there talking about people who take more than they need with a straight face, And so it was all about hate. It was all about division. It was all about abortion and warmongering. And so it was honestly depressing when I left that place. There was nobody in. There was like 20 people who considered themselves uncommitted. And what were they doing? They were begging for scraps. They were begging to have a Palestinian speak at the DNC, and her speech had to be pre-approved anyway. And I was like, "What? Why do you want?" So then now you're going to support Kamala? There was a group called Muslim Women for Kamala, and I'm like,
Jesus.
Why? And they put out a letter. We can't support you anymore because you won't have a Palestinian speak. Did you ask for less? Is there anything you're asking for? A scrap of a scrap? These people so want to be invited to the Democratic Party. They want to be there. It's the prom. And that's what it was. Honestly, when I walked out, I mean, I'm in there. I'm surrounded by brain dead, brainwashed zombies who don't give a shit about policy or changing the country or changing the party or anything. It was depressing as hell. It was creepy. It was like a Stepford Wives convention.
Yeah, when I was brainwashed in my liberal teenage days, what we saw at the DNC convention is what I would imagine like China, North Korea. Like if I was to imagine a crazy communist country, it would be the DNC convention. Just cult worship to authority. No conversations about policy. Like, think of the worst kind of state. That's exactly what I imagine. In my mind, decolonized. And like I said earlier, I was driving my brother Rome crazy just because I'm following, trying to see what they're saying. And I feel like I'm going insane. My brother, who's apolitical, who has great political instincts. You met him. He don't follow politics at all, but he's watching this. Remember, my brother, he's into basketball. He's an artist. He don't fucking care about politics. He don't follow it. He listened to this. He like, bro, this is the craziest shit I've heard in my life. Yes, he has some of my influence, but whenever my family, like the apolitical, the 50% of the country that's ignored, whenever they hear and witness and stuff that I'll be following, they're like, Nick, why you even cover this cloud shit? Because it's so ridiculous. And I want to show you guys this because it shows the kind of voter that was cultivated by this cult of the Democratic Party. So we talk about on our show, Jimmy, the corporate propaganda from MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. What do you guys think is the long-term consequences of that, though? So when I say America is the most propagandized country in the world, I'm not just having a laugh. I'm not having a go. These people are so propagandized, they literally cannot even tell you what they are supporting. I'm gonna play the video and I'm gonna get your reaction, Jimmy.
Can you be up for a quick interview?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
What's your favorite policy of Kamala's?
That's a hard one.
What's your favorite policy of Kamala's?
Her being president.
That's your favorite policy
Bruh.
position?
Her being president.
Oh, yeah.
How so?
Because it covers everything that she defends.
I'm really excited for her to restore reproductive rights across America.
How do you think she'll go about doing that?
Feel free to chime in if you want to anytime.
Let me ask the question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jimmy. I can't see you. Go ahead, Jimmy.
No, she said it perfectly. She said, I'm looking forward to restore reproductive rights. How's she going to do that?
I'm begging people to understand how government works. Isn't it funny how these PNC scumbags who exist to sheep herders through the Democratic Party, they're always so smuggerant to us, the workers. When they say, oh, you guys need to take a civic class, you need to take a civics class. Talking about, oh, we need to vote for Kamala Harris for domestic policy. Oh, I thought we had a right-wing Supreme Court that would never let any of that happen in the first place, right? Like, and they always say that Kamala is gonna give more progressive policy. How are you gonna get through that through Congress? How are you gonna get anything in these things through Congress? The main thing that matters when you look at the executive branch is foreign policy, because that's what the president controls. And when you look at Kamala's foreign policy, as we're going to go through here very soon, it is extreme, hardcore neocon right. There's no other way to describe it. Jimmy, I thought you want to chime in. I'll pass to you before we can continue the video.
So why doesn't this woman, when she's asked, how is Kamala going to restore reproductive rights? Why doesn't she say, well, she'll just do what Trump is going to do and make herself king. And then she can be a dictator on day one and just do whatever she wants, because apparently that's what they think Trump can do. Why is it Kamala Harris has to work with the Senate and the Congress and worry about the Supreme Court, but Trump doesn't? He could just become a dictator. So it's all propaganda. It's all brain dead. It's all insulting. And this is the end of our empire. This is the end of our republic. We're close. This is not a joke. And it's because people, again, it's the stark difference from 8 years ago at the DNC convention in Philly to now. It is complete zombies, complete go-alongs. Nobody cares. Where are all those people who voted for Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders got half the votes in the Democratic primary in 2016. Where are those people? Where are they?
Nowhere to be found. And I take my L for this as someone who was on the Bernie campaign. It was a failed project. Because the theory, and I believe this theory at one point, is that we could shift and we can influence the party to shift to the left by having a progressive. And it's funny to think about it in hindsight, isn't it? But what happened since then is that the party rebelled, and there was consequences to the Bernie campaign where they are now unapologetically shifting to the right as punishment, and they are cucking Bernie and AOC because Bernie and AOC are more than happy to go along with it. You had Kamala and Bernie just openly endorsing BlackRock economic policy. And none of the voters know this. I'm going to let it continue. And feel free to chime in anytime, or I'll pass you after the video as well.
How do you think she'll go about doing that?
I don't know.
What a fun question.
I don't know. I'm picking and choosing. I mean, I really like most of them.
So you have to look at it broadly, right? It's about what she stands for right now.
What's your favorite of Kamala's policy?
Guys, this is not people pulled out of a Walmart. Like, I show grace to people who don't follow politics. Like, if you pull someone to a Walmart and they support Kamala because their family, I'll actually show grace to them. You know, they're just living their life. They're just going through the flows of the culture or whatever. These are people who literally traveled to Chicago and attending a convention, and they, the most hardcore among the Democrats, can't name a policy. This is not like no clickbait, because there's a lot of those videos out there. It's not that, right? But I'll continue.
Please.
I'm trying to think. Well, actually, more of like, well, you know what, Waltz comes in.
All of her policies, everything from I'm non-binary, and so all of the policies for basic human rights to have our own bodies and do with them as we please.
That's not,
You know?
that's not true.
Her-
So can you,
Go ahead, Jimmy.
so even the one policy that guy could mention, it's not true. Those people are not for doing with your body what you want, because they were for mandatory experimental medical treatments being inflicted on you, or you couldn't travel and you couldn't go to work. Or you couldn't do anything. You couldn't go buy a burrito. You couldn't do anything. Mandatory experimental medical treatments. That's what they were for. So they're not for bodily autonomy. And it's amazing. The one thing he says is, well, I'm non-binary, because first of all, he looks super non-binary, right? And but second of all, they cannot, it's never about class. It's never an economic issue. It's never about class. It's always identity politics. It's always about, well, I'm gay, or I'm black, or I'm brown, or I'm a woman, or I have a vagina, or I'm a trans, or it's never a critique of a class. It's never about economics, because they are right-wing Wall Street puppets in bed with the military-industrial complex, and they never stood up for your rights. They never fought for a Supreme Court justice, which is why Roe v. Wade got overturned. Why? Because they dangled that in front of you instead of codifying it, like Barack Obama said he was going to do. He said it was his #1 priority, and then we elected Barack Obama, and they asked him, "Hey, you're going to codify Roe?" He goes, "That's not my priority anymore." Why? Because we need to use that to bait you into voting for us. They couldn't be happier that Roe versus Wade got overturned, because now they have actually something to talk about. They don't have. At that convention, they had nothing to talk about except more war. Trump, I hate Trump. He's a dummy who could also become a dictator. Somehow the dumbest guy in the room can become a dictator and a king, and abortion. That's all they had to talk about. So go ahead.
Yeah, and I know you noticed this as well, how this guy, he made a mistake, because I guess he's not part of the messaging campaign. They don't say "my body, my choice" no more. That was a mistake on his behalf. You guys know they say woman's right to choose.
Yeah.
It's a coordinated thing. I know you noticed it, but it's something that was so clear to me, the change of messaging, because it used to be "my body, my choice." I used to say that. I'm still supportive of the idea that the state should be involved in what we do with our bodies. I was on your show talking about my support against mandates. It's something that was extremely important as someone who's, I would say socialist, but even pro-worker in general. Like the state should not be telling us what to do with our body. And that's why I'm generally supportive of pro-choice policies. But they went from that to women's right to choose, because we don't got a right to choose no more. Men, we can't choose anymore, apparently. And guys, and there are a lot of Johnny-come-latelys on this issue. I wasn't always perfect on this issue as well, but I need people to understand how much this issue, it's something that ordinary people relate to. You know what I mean? I don't like putting my family on blast, but I even have my apolitical mom, my apolitical family that was like, yeah, people getting fired because they had to take a vaccine. That's fucked up. That's like common in the Midwest where I live. That's common fucking opinion. People apolitical said it to me. My mom said it to me one day, I was like, oh, my mom will be canceled on the left if they know what she said. But this whole thing with Pfizer leftists, Moderna leftists never made sense to me. But anyway, let's finish the video. We still got a bunch to cover.
Willingness to move forward on affordable health care.
How do you think she'll do that as president?
I think she'll work to motivate the legislature to vote in favor of it.
As like her as a person, just like tops out any policy.
Really?
I really admire her.
Great. Thank you both so much.
We are the most propagandized country in the world. Anything you want to add to this before? Go ahead, Jimmy. Make sure you're mute, and then I'll pass.
Yeah, she's got a vagina, and that's it. She's biracial. She's half Indian, half black, and that's all that matters. I don't care. It's a person. I don't care about these aren't people you just plucked out of a gas station. These are people who bought a plane ticket to fly to Chicago so they could be so they're delegates. They're literal delegates. They're involved in the process. And they don't have a clue about anything. And the thing is, it's not as bad as that they don't know what her policies is they don't care. They don't care that nobody voted for her. They don't care that they rigged their primary 3 cycles in a row. They don't care that she doesn't have a policy. She won't put one up on her. They don't care that she won't take a question from the press. She won't take a question from she won't speak unscripted to a constituent. They don't care. They are going along with authoritarianism because that's what this is. They are totally rolling over, and Bernie Sanders and AOC are the biggest ones to blame for that because, as I've always said, it's worse having people like Bernie Sanders, AOC, yes, Jamal Bowman. It's worse having them in the party because that gives people the false impression that there's somebody inside the government fighting for you. And what we have to get is people sick and tired of the government and the system to overthrow it. If you still have hope in the system, you don't want to overthrow it. And that's exactly what we're living in right now. So the system just rolls on and on and on, funding war after war after war. I mean, she's funding a goddamn genocide right now. And someone's trying to make out that she's somehow better than Donald Trump. It's crazy. Donald Trump is actually right now to the left of her on a lot of issues. Palestine's not one of them, but she's actually doing the funding of it right now. You can't be actively funding the slaughter of Palestine and then say that somehow you're to the left of Donald Trump on anything, because they're not. They're not to the left of him on the environment. He's got RFK Jr., who's an environmental hero. He got the whole Hudson River cleaned up. He's going to now take on this poison in our food supply. He's going to come out against seed oil. He's going to fight big agra. He's going to fight the corrupted FDA. Kamala Harris has nothing and none of that. Donald Trump was the one who came up with the idea to take the taxes off of people who earn tipped wages, and then she immediately copied it. She was the one a year earlier bragging that she has to tie vote for a bill that went after people who were making tipped wages and to get those taxes. And they were writing op-eds about, that's right, some people who make tipped wages earn $100,000 a year, and why shouldn't they be taxed on that? I mean, that's the kind of climate that the Democrats have cultivated. So Donald Trump right now, believe it or not, and RFK are to the left, far left, because they want to end the Ukraine war. Kamala Harris wants to ramp it up. So it's not easy. My point is, it's not hard to get to the left of Kamala Harris and the Democrats. It's so easy. Even a guy like Donald Trump could do it.
Yeah, we are governed, and this is how I usually like to put it. We are governed by 2 right-wing parties. One that likes gay people, one not so much. That's how they both represent the same policy. Now, Kamala, like you said, is pretty much jacked Trump's whole swag. I don't know if you guys saw Joe Biden's speech. The motherfucker was orange. So they jacked Trump's entire swagger. And we are ruled and governed by 2 parties that support imperial war at the end of the day. And people who believe that Kamala and the Democrat Party, who you can easily make the argument, because I can see what you're saying. You easily can make the argument that Kamala to the right. I make the argument that we have 2 right-wing parties that do not represent the workers, that will represent the military-industrial complex. No matter what we choose, no matter who we vote for, Israel's going to win. No matter what we choose and what we vote for, BlackRock is going to win. I think the overall point is that Kamala and Democrats went so far to the right that even Trump is out-left him on some issues. I can see that argument because you have MSNBC that even they, upon hearing Kamala's pro-war speech, even they were shocked. Like, holy shit. Like, it wasn't like I was horrified. It was pleasantly surprised because I don't know what world these people are living through, and maybe you have an interpretation of this. Some people are hardcore propagandists. Some of them are stupid idiots that kind of believe it. I don't know. I guess it depends on the person because you want to see Donnie Deutsch here, who praises Kamala Harris for being an unapologetic war hawk. But I don't know how hawkish she. Let me go to the beginning. You gotta make sure you pay attention to the very beginning.
I didn't know how hawkish she was on foreign policy. People would say, the language.
I didn't know how hawkish she was.
Really?
And he gonna explain. I'll pass you Jim for any reactions. I'm gonna play the beginning because I saw this. I was doing my research. I was doing some short. I heard this. Perfect. As AOC and Bernie Sanders say, oh my God, Kamala Harris is better than expected. You have MSNBC's like, oh my God, Kamala Harris is way more neocon than we thought. Here it is.
I didn't know how hawkish she was on foreign policy. People would say, the language, the use of words like lethal security that were just woven throughout her speech. The invocations of, in a very forceful way, of the embrace of the flag, the embrace of normalcy, of a patriotism in a kind of unabashed way. That, again, we saw it for 4 straight days here, but her speech last night was a kind of, we'll call it a work of art, but it was a very people go back and take that speech apart in a variety of ways and look at all of the different kinds of movements in it that allowed her to keep making.
What kind of analysis is this? This is deeply unserious. I explained what she said in her speech, why it's so crazy, but this is completely unserious. Anyway, I'll let finish.
Those very consistent narrative and contrast points that were throughout these 4 days. She made them in all kinds of ways, just saying really, really effectively.
Yeah, and threading the needle on the question of Gaza, which is
threading the needle, Jimmy.
Threading the needle.
That's definitely one way to put it.
She threaded the needle on genocide. Did you see that? Isn't that fantastic? Oh, that's what I'm looking for. If she can thread the needle on genocide, that's amazing.
That sounds like some crystal ball commentary right there.
Yeah,
and I'm being driven crazy because all the people who made money pretending to care about Palestinians, they are rooting for Kamala Harris to thread the needle on the issue.
Like Cenk Uygur.
Yeah, if you guys look at their tweets whenever they are quote unquote critical of Kamala, they're not critical because they morally object to what Kamala is doing. They are upset because they're not doing a good job lying to the peace movement. You had Crystal Ball the other day. I don't have to tweet because it's not that important. But you had Crystal Ball like, why don't Kamala Harris just say she supported arms embargo? I'm like, because why do you want her to lie to people? You understand? It irks the shit out of me that people think they're on their side when they do. They're essentially rooting for people to be misled again. And they are horrified because Kyle Kalinske is horrified because Kamala is doing a horrible job at allowing him to sheepdog people too, supporting her. Jimmy, anyone say before I continue the video?
Yeah, I mean, it's the people like Cenk Uygur, Crystal Ball, Kyle Kalinske, they're pro-war. They were pro-Ukraine war. Cenk and Crystal also Russia-gated. And so now here they are. So Cenk finally found a war he could be against, which is the Palestine-Israel war. Cenk's been for every war in my lifetime. He was for Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Somalia. He lied about that he wasn't for the Syrian war. And then I had to show everybody the video that, of course, he was. And he advocated for it and bragged about it. And then here comes the Ukraine war. They're over the top, pro-Ukraine war. That buying repeating CIA talking points, State Department talking points about, because they're all been Russia. They've all were Russia gators, so they all are primed to go along with this war, proxy war with Russia. And then finally, guys, someone like Cenk Uygur finds a war he's against, the Israeli-Palestine war, and he calls everyone monsters who are for this. And you're a monster. He goes on Piers Morgan, you're a monster. You're a monster. And then there he is supporting someone who's a monster, apparently, someone who's actually on board for she's literally in office right now funding a genocide, and she's against an arms embargo. So she's also a monster, and he's talking about how because Tim Walz is going to give us school lunches, that's a great reason to blow the heads off of Palestinian babies en masse. It's remarkable to see these people. I hate to use the term, it's an overused term, but those guys are grifters. That's exactly what that is. They're just like politicians. They speak out of both sides of their mouth, and they hope nobody notices. And I mean, there was for a while there, he was trying to get up to RFK Jr.'s ass. He was trying to pretend he was on board with RFK Jr. So anyway, it's just, those people are, and that's why we can't have nice things, because there's no unity in the left. And when it comes around for somebody on the left to do something like force the vote, like the right wing showed that they could do, they could get rid of McCarthy, they could get rid of Boehner, they could get rid of anybody they wanted as speaker if they didn't do what they wanted. And when we had that chance as lefties, half the online left turned against us. So and that's Cenk Uygur, that's all those people. So anyway, I really am pessimistic on the future for our country. Certainly, the Democratic Party's over. You have a better chance, and this is no kidding. You have a better chance of pushing the Republican Party left than you do the Democratic Party. In fact, it's happening right now because of Trump's. At least their rhetoric is left, is more left, way more left right now, with RFK being on board the Trump campaign. it's way more left. They're talking about peace in Ukraine and how they're going to end that war. They're talking about making friends out of enemies with Russia and China. They're talking about cleaning up our food supply. They're talking about challenging the FDA. And there's none of that coming. You'll never get any of that out of the Democratic Party. At least you have a chance. And it's not only that they're saying it. The thing that people, so when RFK Jr. gave his speech at the Trump rally, the day he dropped out, it wasn't just that those guys were saying that stuff, because you could go, well, they're just lying, maybe, right? But it's the crowd that was there, a full stadium of people that were cheering that on. They were cheering anti-war. They were cheering peace. They were cheering making friends with our enemies. They were cheering investing that money back in the United States. They were cheering taking on the regulatory agencies. They were cheering on taking on big agra. They were booing big corporations. That's where that crowd is now. That's where the populist right is right now. That's Trump's crowd. So even if you don't believe Donald Trump, there's a lot of things to be happy about because the people agree. And I've always said, like Frederick Douglass, I'll join with anybody to do good and nobody to do bad. And I'll join with those people to end a war. I'll join with those people to regulate big agra. I'll join with those people to get the poison out of our food. Half the kids in our country are obese. Only 3% of kids in Japan are obese. I'll join with those people to re-regulate to get the revolving door out of our regulatory system. I'll join with them to do anything good. And those people are on board for that. You know who isn't? The Democrats. I just came from Chicago. None of that stuff got even mentioned. None of that stuff came up. None of it. And they're not on board for it. They're on board for more war. They're on board for making us the most lethal fighting force in the world. They're on board for funding genocide. They don't care. As long as they got a black woman with a vagina to be their leader, they pat themselves on the back. They're somehow better than the right wing because it's all about identity politics. We care more about trans people. We care more about gay people. Well, I got news for you. Gay people aren't second-class citizens in this country anymore. They're now first-class citizens, and they have been for a long time. These people are living in the 1980s. Gay people are first-class citizens. There's nothing they can't do or won't do, and I can't believe that the Democrats didn't. If it wasn't for Kamala, they would have put Pete Buttigieg in as president. So there's this idea that you're a better person. Donald Trump was the first president to enter the White House being pro-gay marriage. Barack Obama was not pro-gay marriage when he entered the presidency. So Donald Trump was, and by the way, Donald Trump just had a gay marriage performed at Mar-a-Lago at his house in Florida. So this idea that somehow that's all we have to run on is gay rights. What they're really doing is running on a bastardized version of gay rights, inserting biological males into women's spaces. It's very misogynistic, and feminism and women's rights went right out the window. And that doesn't come from the bottom up, Nick. That comes from the top down. That comes from people like Vanguard and BlackRock. Why do they push DEI? Why do they push ESG? Why do they push trans rights? Because they want to wrap themselves in a patina of virtue while they rape the planet. And that's what we have to be. So that's what identity politics is there. It's there to divide us and keep us divided. And I've said that if it was 1860, the Democrats wouldn't be trying to fix slavery. They'd be bragging about their first transgendered slave owner.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Democratic Party openly being the pro-war party. The only thing I would disagree with, because I generally view MAGA as a fraudulent movement. Like, for example, they say they support free speech, but they 100% down with shutting down pro-Palestinian protests. You had Trump during the 2016 election that said he was going to get healthcare for everybody. So the only thing I would caution, we shouldn't be taking anything they say seriously as well, because I think they're going to sell us out to Israel. When it comes to Ukraine, Trump's criticism of NATO was that NATO countries wasn't putting enough into the alliance. And because of Trump, a lot of NATO countries actually decided to put more money into NATO. And Trump is like, yeah, I'm super excited about that. He want to grow, get more people to support NATO. So we see if I'm right, but I'm not quite buying the thing that if Trump would end the Ukraine war. But that's up in the air. I just don't trust him. But we can get back to 7. That's the only thing I would add. I feel like MAGA, and I'm gonna be happy no matter who wins. But if Trump wins, I am going to look forward to the fact that many of his supporters, because I do agree with you what you said. I do think there are some of his supporters that are misled that think he's going to do that stuff. Like there are people on the right that want to end the war. They are not as bad. And I try to be careful when I say that word, but they're not like the Bush Republicans who I could never work with. You know what I mean? So I think there are some good faith MAGA people. They follow me. I think Trump is going to betray them, and I think that will create an opportunity for us later on. But that's my take. Anything you want to add, Jimmy, before I move on?
Yeah, the point I would like to make is that it would be, if you're an anti-war person, it would be better if Donald Trump was president for this reason, because Democrats will every once in a while protest a war if it's run by a Republican. They'll never protest a war if it's run by a Democrat, especially a black Democrat and a female. When Barack Obama became president, he dropped more bombs than George W. Bush, and nobody noticed, and nobody protested it, and nobody gave a shit. So at least if it's a Republican doing the warmongering, the Democrats will every once in a while will oppose that. But if it's a Democrat doing it, they won't. That's the problem.
I'm torn on that, Jimmy, because on one end, Republicans are good when they win because the same people who are calling pro-Palestinian protesters terrorists, like the shit I'm seeing liberals say is shocking. Like how they're treating the Palestinian supporters is shocking. Those same people will be out in the street saying genocide Trump. So on that end, I'm like, bro, Republicans are better because the same liberals who will be deactivated would protest Trump. On the other end, Democrats, when they are in charge, tend to radicalize people more. You know what I mean? Like there's more people who've been radicalized. Imagine if Trump won in 2020 and Trump did the genocide. People will be attacking us like, see, you guys didn't support Joe Biden. Now there's a genocide. Bro, thank God Biden won because of that. Because if that didn't happen, bro, imagine what Cenk Uygur and them would be telling us right now. They'd be like, you're the reason why we got a genocide. So it's good on the other hand to have Democrats in charge because they radicalize people more. Like the same way Obama radicalized people. That's why I'm saying I'm torn, because one end, Republicans are good to get liberals in the street. On the other end, I think Democrats radicalize more. But anyway, I know you have a show to do, so I'm going to get through some of these receipts a little bit faster. Feel free to interrupt anytime. This is a good conversation. I'm going to let this clip finish. This presentation was about Kamala's NEOCON agenda, which I think fits in the conversation. Jimmy got a show a little bit earlier, so we're going to keep this around an hour. Let me finish this clip, and I'm going to do a presentation. Jimmy, if you want to interrupt, feel free. I can't really see you when I do these presentations, so feel free to just give me an audio cue. But
Or throughout these 4 days, she made them in all kinds of ways, just saying really, really effectively.
Yeah, and threading the needle on the question of Gaza, which has hovered over this, saying, quote, to be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself. Making clear we support Israel, we stand shoulder to shoulder, but we have to stop the suffering in Gaza, saying she's going to work toward a ceasefire deal. Claire, one of the other...
So that I'm gonna move on because there's a lot to say there, but we already discussed the NEOCON agenda of the Democratic Party, and people will lie to me and say Kamala support a ceasefire. I'm like, words have meaning. There's my second speech. Words have meaning, and I am not going to allow people to gaslight me and change the definition of a ceasefire. You do not support a ceasefire when you sent 500 air deliveries to Israel since October 7th, and they just sent another one. You guys understand that's one shipment every like 48 hours. As AOC said that Biden is working tirelessly for a ceasefire, Biden and Kamala is sending Israel bombs every 48 hours, my friends. So I have to get aggressively upset when they gaslight us with that nonsense. Here's a compilation of Kamala Harris's unhinged speech. Big shout out to Hotspot. They always posting these great receipts for us. They also edit my videos. Big shout out to them. This is Kamala Harris sounding no different than the George Bush, Dick Cheney neocon. Like there's no way in a million years you could ever get me to support this nonsense.
That America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st.
Let me read the description because Kamala Harris, this is from Hotspot, Kamala Harris made sure to name every single major enemy of the United States in her DNC convention speech. because they're trying to program liberals to be ready for war.
That America, not China, wins the competition for the 21st century and defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. I helped mobilize a global response over 50 countries to defend against Putin's aggression. I will not cozy up to tyrants and dictators like Kim Jong-un who are rooting for Trump.
She sounds like a mad person, Jimmy. She's a mad woman. Go ahead, Jimmy, if you want to chime in.
No, she sounds like George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. That's what they say. The Democratic Party has fully morphed into the party of George Bush and Dick Cheney, except they're for gays. That's it.
This is the person that the progressive media is trying to convince you to vote for. I actually heard someone told me they backtracking now. You had the Kyle Kalinske, the Vanguard, the Crystals. They went so hard on Kamala, especially when they endorsed, when she appointed Tim Walz at the VP. Now they're starting to scale it back because they realize that Kamala is exactly who we told them she was. So during her speech, unlike Trump, I will never cozy up to tyrants. And a lot of reason why we get hate from these people that we call out is because we don't have Trump derangement syndrome. And I define Trump derangement syndrome personally. When you have Trump derangement syndrome, you believe that Trump is uniquely evil, uniquely different from the standard oligarch. That's how I define it. You gotta know I have no love. I don't trust Trump. I think he's a con man personally, but he's just an average member of the ruling class, as far as I'm considered. Hell, he's just better at the game than them. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jimmy.
I would agree with you. I just interviewed Alex Jones, and I gave him a little bit of a hard time because he's openly supporting Trump's candidacy. And I said, you know, the first time Trump was president, he said he was going to clean the swamp, but he didn't. He put the swamp right in his cabinet. He said he was going to give everybody health care. He didn't. He said he was going to bring jobs back to America. He didn't. So what makes you think this is going to be different? I mean, he went and then did warp speed. He gave a medal to Fauci. I go, what makes you think he's going to be different? And so the only thing I will say, the only caveat I will give there, Nick, is that Donald Trump makes the mistake of thinking that the president should control the intelligence community and the military. And the president hasn't controlled the intelligence community or the military since they killed John F. Kennedy. And so he thought he was control of the military. Now we find out that when he would order them to take troops out of somewhere, they wouldn't, and they would lie to him, just like the military lied to, and the CIA lied to JFK about Cuba and the Bay of Pigs and all. He realized he was being lied to. He wanted to break up the CIA. Instead, they killed him. And so they are trying to kill Donald Trump. So they're not trying to kill Joe Biden. They're not trying to kill Kamala. In fact, the intelligence community is constantly lying, right? Just the Hunter laptop. They had 50 CIA people saying that that's Russian. So they're lying at the behest of the Democratic Party now and the Democratic nominee. They're not trying to lie for Donald Trump. They're still trying to undermine him and get rid of him. That's what Russiagate was. That's what those impeachments were. That's what the psyop of January 6th was. That's what the lawfare is. And then they just tried to assassinate him. So that's not happening to the Democrats. So there is a faction of the deep state that doesn't want him. There is a faction of the military industrial complex that doesn't want Donald Trump. You can't deny that. I can't deny it anyway. It seems obvious to me, but it also seems like he didn't start any wars. That was the one thing. He reluctantly bombed Syria. And he didn't. He was the one guy who didn't start a war. So you can't. I can't ignore that. And so there are those two things, right? I also believe he's a regular Republican. He governed like a regular Republican. He put the swamp right in his thing. Pompeo had a plan to kill Julian. He didn't free Julian Assange. He didn't pardon Snowden. So all that stuff. So I'm with you on all that stuff. But there are just those two things. He didn't start a war, and the deep state is trying to kill him. So there's got to be so he is a thorn in their side somewhere at some point. And I think it's because he wants to control the military and he wants to control the intelligence community. And they're letting him know, no, you're not. We will kill you. And we'll Russiagate you, we'll impeach you, we'll lawfare you. And then if all that doesn't work, we'll assassinate you. That's what the message is. So I don't think
I hear what you're saying, Jimmy. My main thing is my skepticism of Trump. He went along with the prosecution of Julian Assange.
Yes.
So I'm not willing to bet that he's willing to fight the deep state. So if Trump has like an anti-establishment inclination, which I think he does in some instances, he's not willing to fight for it. You know what I mean? Like he won't ever betray his class to that level. And there is a faction of the deep state that definitely want him gone, but there's also a faction of the deep state that support him, and that's something I gotta be clear. Because if you look at a lot of the swamp monsters, like the NEOCON swamp monsters, they support him. But I understand your point because they definitely tried to kill him.
Yeah.
You look at I don't know how anyone can see what happened at the assassin. That definitely was the deep state trying to kill him. So there's a lot of valid things you're saying. There's some things I don't agree with because I don't think Trump is really going to be a threat. I think they're more than happy to play this game to make it seem like he's a threat, and also could have helped them to rally support to the Democrat. But I understand what you're saying. They, especially with the assassination attempt, they would never do that on. I don't even think they would do that to J.D. Vance, for example. Okay, he was an establishment Republican,
right?
I think it's a lot. I see someone in the chat. I see you guys sometimes. It's a lot of dirty pro wrestling bullshit, and there's some, and there's a debate on whether who really believes and who don't. I think when you look at Anderson Cooper, he doesn't believe a goddamn thing he's saying. He's a great actor. Jake Tapper doesn't believe any goddamn thing he's saying. But there are a few of them that you like, I think this guy is so stupid. I think he legitimately believes it. So I think there are people in the New York Times, Washington Post, who legitimately believe that Trump is like this anti-establishment person who's going to destroy the war machine. So they attack him like he is. So I understand why people come to that conclusion. That's my general take. I'm going to go on to the last part of this. Let's see, what should I skip over? I definitely want to show this. So let me show you guys this. This is Kamala Harris's friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump is too. Trump loves. He used Palestinian as a slur. Like, man, that's fucking dark.
Yeah, I agree.
That was dark. But this is Kamala. I want to emphasize that there are two wings of the Imperial War Machine. Trump is a goofy motherfucker that they can't 100% control. So that's why they definitely prefer the neoliberal wing of the establishment. And this is Kamala Harris in 2019. And I've been having a blast ever since they replaced Biden. I thought someone who I don't even care about, I don't even want to name them. They're one of the progressive people. Like, I know that RBN and them upset that Biden was replaced. Like, bro, I love the fact that we get to roast Kamala Harris again. I was explaining Kamala Harris. She was a senator for only one term. In only one term, she racked up one of the most unhinged Senate records you can think of, as you have MAGA in the right pretending that she's a diehard communist. I know you got a heart out. So I'm gonna wrap it here. Here, as MAGA's pretending Kamala's a diehard communist, you know Kamala Harris joined Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and the most far-right Republicans in order to support a bill that condemned the UN when the UN said that Israel does not have the right to illegally put settlements in the West Bank. And Kamala was against the UN resolution against Israeli terrorism. This is the person that progressives are floating going to be more sympathetic to the Palestinians. You have Doug Emhoff, her husband, that played a key role in pushing the anti-Semitic hoax and calling anti-genocide protesters anti-Semitic. And I can't mention this because I will get called anti-Semitic by people like Ben Burgess. Ben Burgess called me an anti-Semite for bringing this up. Anyway, last thing I'm going to share, I'm going through just rapid fire. I know you got to go here soon. The last thing I absolutely want to share, we have RBN Roundtable Thursday. I may do a solo stream tomorrow. I have a lot of cover, so we're going to get to more tomorrow probably. Jimmy has a hard out. To show you guys how unhinged, I'm kind of skipping ahead because this is one thing I definitely want to show today. I've been covering and I mentioned this in my speech, the damn near civil war that happened in Israel over the right to rape Palestinians to death. And the pro-rape side won. Asked about this. Jimmy, when asked about the fact that the pro-rape faction won in this debate on whether who should be held accountable, the position of the Biden administration was, oh, we're going to follow the direction of Israel and we are going to allow them to investigate themselves. That's the position of the Biden administration. You have Kamala saying we're not going to tell Israel how to prosecute this war. People saying Trump is worse, though. How would Trump handle this any worse than that? That's my question. So I'll pass to you. I'm going to read this and we wrap up here. But this is the guy. He had a big unmasking video where he's like, yeah, I will not be ashamed. I will not going to hide myself. I am the rapist. And then he was met with massive applause by this 6'6" society. And now the Israeli rapist is now a celebrity in Israel, going on game shows. I just read the tweet here. The Israeli soldier who raped Palestinians on camera is now being paraded around shows in Israel and treated like a celebrity star. This is the state that has diehard, unwavering support by both parties. So I'll pass you, Jimmy. I know you got to go here soon. Any other thoughts you have before we begin to wrap up?
Well, yeah, just to touch on Israel, Palestine a little more. That when I talk to my Jewish friends like Russ and Keaton, they're very certain that the Zionist project is a failure and that this war has been a failure. The weapons inspector Scott Ritter also says that they've actually lost. They've screwed themselves. Their economy is cratering. Their ports are empty. They're going to be sanctioned, and they're going to have boycotts put on them. And there's already a brain drain leaving from Israel. And now the least safe place for a Jewish person to be is going to be inside Israel. Right. And so I've never agreed with the idea that you need to have Israel as a safe haven for Jews, because all the Jews I know in Hollywood and Florida and New York, they all feel very safe. In fact, there was a videotape of Jewish people in the UK saying, I feel safe. No problem. So this idea. And by the way, I found out because of October 7th, I found out all the lies about Zionism, that Israel was not created as a result of the Holocaust. That was a project started in the 1800s. The Balfour Declaration was in 1917. So I realized that this was all, and there was the Nakba. And so this is all bullshit. And so, but the good news is that apparently Israel's failing, according to my Jewish friends, Russ and Keaton, and that now people are going to have to apologize for being from Israel the way Germans had to apologize for Nazis their entire life since World War II. Yeah. So hopefully that's the case. I have my fingers crossed. I don't know. That's what they say. So I think that's the one, silver lining on this horrible situation.
Yeah, I've been following this issue ever since my time as a citizen journalist, and I never seen reactions like this before October 7th. I covered in 2022 how in the World Cup, Israelis was treated like the scourge that they are. Like Israeli reporters was being denied interviews. You had people chanting "Free Palestine" at all the Israeli events, and that was before the genocide, fam.
Right.
I saw a video of Japanese teenagers in Japan, usually arms of the United States foreign policy. They calling out Israel, South Korea, all the satellites of the United States are calling out Israel the way we never seen before. I think they pushed it too far. And Keaton and Russ, my post-duopoly brothers, they're 100% right. I am pleasantly surprised at how successful October 7th actually was. Now, Hamas is not held accountable because Israel war crimes, but October 7th set off a series of events that will lead to the end of the Israeli state. Before October 7th, it was normalized. Now you had massive boycotts that destroyed the Israeli economy. Ansarallah and the resistance united more than ever. The IDF taking massive losses that they're not reporting. On Twitter, you see every day people more, oh my God, this IDF terrorist died. They're getting their ass whooped, fam. There's a reason why they're sniping children in the head from a distance. They're losing on the battlefield. They're losing international support. You got arrest warrants being put on Israelis. I think we are beginning to see the beginning of the end of the Israeli project, and it's because of the massive victory on October 7th. Whether people get upset at that, whatever, it is true. That's why they had to commit a genocide after that. And not Hamas fault be how Israel acted after that. They have a victory in the battlefield, and the West can't handle losing without committing a genocide. The same happened in Vietnam and Cambodia. The My Lai massacre, the mass bombing in Cambodia. Whenever there's a victory by the resistance, the West make people pay. But Jimmy, 2 minutes. I know you got hard out, so I want to pass it to you. Any final thoughts It's great to have you on the show. It's great to talk about these, even things that we disagree on. It's great to talk about them. Jimmy, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, well, that's how you know we're not in a cult, Nick. Is that we could disagree on things and still support each other and work together. A cult is when people they don't have any questions, they never get out of line, and they just repeat the orthodoxy. And that's what the Democratic National Convention was, and that was a cult. And so it's great. It's glad to not be in a cult. I have a lot of people who watch my show who will constantly say, "I don't agree with Jimmy's liberal politics, but I appreciate him telling the truth." And so that's the opposite of a cult. People who don't agree with me, but still see that I'm an honest broker and that I can work with them. And so that's how I feel about, that's why I like you and the Revolutionary Blackout Network. We can disagree on things, but we can work together.
Yeah, Jim, you know what fake comments on Twitter say all the time? They say, I am someone who wanted to work with someone who I disagree with. It's not Jimmy Dore. Fuck that guy. I can't ever have any disagreements with Jim. I want to work with someone else, though. I haven't been remarkably consistent. What did I tell you guys since day one? I want to work with people I disagree with for a greater cause, and I want to have conversations with people who operate in good faith, and that's exactly what we do. That's why I'm looking forward to having you back on again. And also, how many people use their platform to promote RB and mutual aid? You know what I mean? How many people contribute to the Rome's library? How many people promote our work? TYT and them, they never mention our name unless Ben Burge is calling us an anti-Semite. So I know who's on our side. We don't have to agree on everything, but at least we can talk about it. So thank you for joining us. Make sure you guys check out Jimmy. He about to go live here soon, so I'm gonna read super chats. Jimmy has a heart out. Thank you for joining us, Jimmy.
Bye, brother.
Make sure you guys check out his live stream. Take care, Jimmy. All right, cool. So let me read super chats. I don't like the big screen layout. I need to put some. I need to show something. Anyway, I guess I'll read super chats from here. That's fine. Save democracy, they say, with an appointed candidate. Well said. Thank you for the super chat, veteran of dissent. I feel like there's something I could be promoting here. I guess I'll tell you if you guys follow Hotspot. I have this great relationship. I'm gonna do my promotion here. I have a great relationship with Hotspot RBN. I have a great relationship with Hotspot. They do great work. This is Nico's project. A few other people who like to remain behind the scenes. They do great work, great anti-imperialist work. I'm honored to be working with Hotspot. The RBN had a great relationship with Hotspot. So that's my promotion. I'll plug. I'll have it up here. Make sure you guys follow Hotspot. I have a new video coming out here soon. They're the one who that helped edit the videos. I have full control over all the videos on Hotspot. They just do the editing. That's it. Thanks for the super chat, veteran of dissent. Our super sticker, I should say. Black Spock, here's another one. Thanks for the $5, Christian. Sorry I couldn't read the super chat while Jimmy was on stream. I tried to, but he had a heart out, and I didn't even get through half of what I had planned. So thank you for the $5, Christian. That DNC convention reminded me of the Roman Colosseum with people cheering for war or massacre sorry, I butchered that. With people cheering for war, massacre, of course, genocide, the worst of human experience. Yeah, dude, the DNC was creepy, man. And I don't know if people who follow politics know how creepy it is. My brother was with me in Chicago, and he was in the same room as I was following the convention, watching it live. And he just like, my brother, his jaw was on the floor. I know some people said they didn't know who the light-skinned guy, the picture I posted with Jimmy. Let me pull it up. Big shout out to my brother Lewis. He's not political, but my family, like I said, are apolitical, and they don't trust the establishment. Here's the picture. I saw a lot of people in comments asking who they was. The light-skinned guy, the guy with a beard that I can't grow for some reason. The fuck? Like, how did he able to grow that beard, but I can't? That's some bullshit. But my brother. That's our Kerry party person. He witnessing the DNC convention is like, bro, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. Our country is fucked. And that's why my brother's not into politics. That's the same thing my sister told me. She's not into politics because she knows it's full of shit. That's why I always push back when people say black people support Democrats. I'm like, no, they don't. Among the black people who vote, around 70-80% of them do, but you gotta take at least half of the black people who don't vote, like my brother, my sister, and many others in my family. So yeah, it was great meeting our brothers at the Post Duopoly show. Let me put up. Yeah, we actually got a few more super chats. Nice. I appreciate the support, guys. This is for Super Seamster Sewing Show. I appreciate your consistent super stickers. There are a lot of super stickers I see from you, so I appreciate it. Have you talked to Jimmy about communism? We had a lot. Me and Jimmy had a lot of conversations. I think I've talked to him about why I'm a communist before. There are a lot of people I have on my shows that are not communists, like Misty, Nico, Jimmy, not communist. I like to think I'm influencing people to reject their anti-communism. That's why I draw the line, because I like, you don't have to call yourself a communist. I understand how Americans are been brainwashed against that term. But I draw the line at anti-communist. You know what I mean? Because you don't have to be a communist to be in community with me. I would love if you was. But I will cancel your ass in the quickness if you're an anti-communist, if you spreading bullshit about Nicolas Maduro, bullshit about China, North Korea. Jimmy just had a segment not too long ago where he said, he had a statement called "Everything he was told about North Korea was a lie." Based as hell. Now, a lot of people in his community didn't take kindly to it, but at least Jimmy doesn't fall for that bullshit. He's not a communist, but he's not falling, from what I've seen, from the anti-community bullshit. You know what I mean? That's where I'll draw the line at. If you spreading anti-communism, that's why I'm not interested in talking to Alex Jones. Like, I think he got a good take on war, but Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, they are anti-communist, and anti-communism is responsible for millions of deaths, torture, death, destruction. There's no more destructive ideology than anti-communism. There's no, like, anti-communism is what Western societies used to justify destabilizing entire regions, countries. It's something that people on the left should take a hard line on. That's my opinion. You know what I mean? The line, I see someone, I'll read his comment. The chat is going fast. That's why I can only read super chats. I'm not trying to dodge any questions. I just can't read all the chats. Where's the line for you? My line is Zionism. My line is I don't support people who support the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And Jamie has made it clear, even though I think he said too many nice things about Trump, that he don't support Trump. He's been very clear that he's not supportive of Trump. So when we have our little disagreement on stream, I say I implore that we highlight the fact that Trump is a sellout too, but he's not supportive of Trump. So that's where my line is. My line is I don't take people seriously who are part of the duopoly. And as far as I know, Jimmy is anti-duopoly. He don't support Republicans or Democrats. That's a hard line for me. That's why I go so hard at Nina Turner and Marianne Williamson. I don't give a fuck what you're saying if you're supporting the party that is responsible for destroying the Black community, for destabilizing the Middle East. That's the hard line. And the second hard line I have right now is Zionism, obviously. Like, if you support the state of Israel, like RFK Jr., like anyone else, I'm not interested, period, at all. So I don't know if I'm missing any, but that's my main two hard lines where I'm like, I'm not in community with you, period. Obviously racism, but that is so that manifests itself, because if someone is racist, they're not trying to work with me. You know what I mean? So that's why I usually don't even have to include that. Few more super chats here. Here from Super Seamster Sewing Show. Boy, Jimmy is teaching RBN forever. Thank you for your super chat there. Thank you for the 123. People never seem to realize getting millions of woke liberals to fully support genocide is an extremely expensive investment. Trump making genocide look bad will be devastating to that investment. Very interesting super chat. I appreciate that. The super chats are pouring in now. I appreciate the support. We are back. Good to be back in production. I haven't streamed I think I only did like 3 live streams over the last week or so, but I was in Chicago. It was a great time. It's great to be back in production. I told you guys, but you guys didn't believe me. I didn't blame my shirt. You guys didn't believe me when I told you guys that I was better at giving speeches than I was at live streaming. This shit is awkward, bro. I told you, this shit is awkward. It took me forever to get comfortable with live streams. If you watch my old show, I was so stiff. I was so nervous. I'm still nervous. But it's hard to be yourself. I learned to be more myself, but it's still not the same. You know what I mean? Seeing the faces of the crowd, hearing the pops, you know, just the being in the now. You know what I mean? That's way better. So I'm glad I'm glad the universal praise that I received. There was a lot of pressure on me in that speech, man. I took that very seriously. We had a lot of eyes watching. You guys have no idea how nervous I was because it was like the shining moment for RBN. Thousands of people watching, even people who didn't like RBN was watching. And I think it was a big moment, and I take pride in myself in rising to those occasions. You know what I mean? As an athlete before, rising to those high pressure situations. And also, like, how could I be nervous? How could I pass up on that opportunity when I had an opportunity to walk in the footsteps of my ancestors? You know what I mean? Like, I'll show you guys speeches of Kwame Ture speaking, and I truly idolize those people. So when I was standing up at the church, you got damn right I was imitating Kwame Ture. I saw someone leave a comment that was like, man, Nick reminded me of a Kwame Ture. I was like, bro, that was like the best compliment I've ever fucking received in my life. Because I would tell you guys right now, when I gave my speech, I would literally was like, I'm imitating Malcolm X and Kwame Ture. And if you call me out for jacking their style, I'm cool with that. Thank you for the 279. Damn, we got a lot of super chats. I appreciate the support. Good to be back, man. Good to be back with you guys. Thank you for 279. Kogama. Congolese are being ethnic cleansed for land and minerals. And you want to know who support that ethnic cleansing and genocide? Israel and Zionists, right? Man, I wish I could read more chats. This chat's going real fast, huh? I wish I could read more normal chats, but I'm sorry, I can only read super chats today just because it's too much. But I appreciate the support. RBN is growing, man. A lot of people thought I was full of shit. Like, guys, you guys remember, I was on the Bernie campaign. I was giving speeches to black barbershops, my brother, my sisters. I used to be coach. I used to be team captain. I'm used to being the guy who rallied the troops, giving those speeches. And it was something I pride myself on as someone who grew up with a speech impediment, that I went from growing up with a speech impediment. You guys can still hear it. You know what I mean? I went from having a speech impediment, getting in fights over people over it, to mastering public speaking and be able to talk in front of hundreds of people. So I am proud of that. I'm still high off of that. It was a great experience. I'll never forget it. Meeting all the people, meeting James Starks, the OG Black Panther guy. Like, Chicago, I cannot emphasize enough, bro, like how great of an experience that was. Big shout out to you, Lucy. I see you in the chat. I saw your stream the other day too. Big shout out to Lucy. I'm trying to read some normal chats too, but I guess I'll just take the super chats. I gotta go into here soon. Thank you for the 799. Fantastic conversation. Thank you, RBN, Nick, Jamie, Zoya. Love and solidarity. Well said. Thank you for the $7.99. I think it was a good conversation too. Thank you for $10, Henry. We all need to align and topple Kamala and Trump. Absolutely. Well said, Henry. Thank you for the 499 Buckeye fan. I think Nick should interview Dr. Tommy J. Curry, author of The Man Not. Hopefully Zoya can make it happen. You already know Zoya in the lab cooking right now. I told Zoya, like, man, keep my schedule light for this week because I had a long trip in Chicago. But the first week of September, you already know we about to be in the lab cooking. We about to have Jill Stein and Dr. Butch Ware, Jill Stein's vice president. They're coming on soon. I'm aiming for next week. I think Savvy got dibs first. Thank you for $2. Absolute banger. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back for sure with the RBM Roundtable on Thursday. And Friday, I'm planning a show with my friend Misty. I'm also going to be on Nico House's show on Thursday as well. So a lot coming up. Good to be back. Another banger today with Jimmy Dore. Appreciate your work. Appreciate you, Marvin, for your consistent super chats. I recognize that name as well. Big shout out for my homie Daryl of Seattle. I met him as well. Another great comrade I met in person. Thank you, Republican or Democrat. We are walking from fascism to authoritarianism, fascism. This country is cooked. AODC, AOC, CIA. Damn, we didn't even get to that segment. Fuck. We cover this later. I wanted to cover this. AOC essentially saying that genocide is not a big deal. I think I'm gonna get to this later this week. Either we're at the round table, or maybe I might do a surprise stream. We see. But I think we only have a few more super chats left. Oh Jesus. Jimmy Dore is wrong, of course, wrong sometimes. Everyone is, but I feel he's genuine and honest. I do too. Like, I've been consistent that I want to work with people who are anti-imperialist. I like the fact that Jimmy, we were friends before I even got a YouTube page. I always appreciate the fact that Jimmy puts back on CIA talking points. Wherein the left was weak on foreign policy, the left was weak on Venezuela. You had Jimmy calling out the bullshit on the Venezuelan proxy war or attempt to overthrow the government. So on this show, I like to talk to people who are anti-imperialists, who challenge the empire. Many of the people you see on the show are not on the left, but they are against the empire. So Jimmy is just one of many people who speak out against the empire that I invite on our show, who I may disagree with on some issues and some not. I don't understand, and I will literally never understand the obsession with Jimmy, the Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome, where he's like put on a pedestal, where people wrap their entire politics around what this guy is saying. Just like anyone in this country, especially a lot of white people, they get a lot of things wrong. I'm a communist, guys. You guys realize that, right? If you're not a communist, I generally think you're fucking up on a lot of things. What? You believe that capitalists should have the means of production? Like, if I was to cancel people off of those kind of disagreements, I'm canceling everybody. You guys realize that, right? Unless you call yourself a communist. But I don't do that. I believe that we should talk to people. We should grow our community. And I grew up in the Midwest where there are people, where there are hardcore right-wingers. And I talk to those people. That is what it means to organize. I think if you're afraid to talk to people who disagree with, had disagreements with you, you're not really a socialist. Like, how are you going to live in a capitalist country, but you're afraid to talk to people who disagree with you? They already disagree with you on something that's giant. What I'm saying makes sense? You know what I mean? Yes, we made our disagreement with Jimmy clear. We had a disagreement over the framing of Trump, right? But my hard lines is supporting the empire and supporting the duopoly, and that's my starter. And as far as I'm concerned, Jimmy doesn't do that. So yes, I think he gets some things wrong, but not the end of the day. You know what I mean? We need to be in community, especially since Jimmy was one of the few people who actually propped up and advertised RBM mutual aid. To this day, yeah, Ben Burge is calling us anti-Semitic. TYT calling us right-wingers. Like, all these people smeared us. You know what I mean? You got people smearing us all the time. And at the same time, they never mention how we do mutual aid. Jordan from Status Quo, who knows me, who I've been on this show, he had other people on RBN on his show to highlight mutual aid. But because we criticize him, he goes on his show and lies about us all the time. He lied and said, oh, well, RBN not doing shit. And that's something that we always deal with. We always dealt with the white left smearing us. And you guys know what we're talking about. Every single giant white leftist with a platform has smeared RBN at one point, whether you guys know it or not. A lot of it happened on Twitter. I know a lot of you guys know on Twitter. A lot of these people smear us. You want to know who haven't smeared us? Jimmy. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why people pretend that he's the enemy when there's way worse out there. You know what I mean? So that's my mindset. And you're going to have a hard time changing it. I think for the $10, the bourgeoisie want to be commie ass clown. Jackson Hinkle was not able to properly explain the difference between capitalism and communism to Jimmy. Maybe you can explain it to him. I didn't see the interview. Like once again, you guys follow Jackson more than I do. I think you guys follow Jimmy more than I do. I'm friends with Jimmy, and you guys follow that motherfucker more than I do. You guys like, hey, do you guys know what Jimmy said on this one segment of the Jimmy Dore show last Tuesday? I'm like, no, not really. But with that said, you guys don't have to agree with my take on this. You guys don't have to like anyone I like. That's okay, man. That's okay. I'm one of the people that I'd rather be in conversation with people. I always despise cancel culture. I said that from the beginning when we was called Frankhampton leftists. That never changed. So for the people in the minority of people, because I see a lot of great positive comments today. So for the minority of people who will be upset with Jimmy coming on, are you implying that we should cancel him? I don't understand the implication. You know what I mean? Just for the few people, just for the minority of the people who are upset, who want to keep the RBN community as small as possible. Thank you, Christian. I see one more, so I'm going to read one more. We had a lot of super chats came in the last second, so I appreciate it. Nick, you standing on business, Black Power. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate truth above all. I believe that is the last super chat. Hope you guys enjoy this conversation. I'm very hyped for RBN Roundtable Thursday. We do once a month. It's going to be good vibes. I'm telling you guys, after the Chicago trip, the vibes, the energy and the enthusiasm in the RBN community is at an all-time high. And a lot of people didn't believe me when I said it. A lot of people didn't believe Savvy when she said it. A lot of people didn't believe us when I told you guys the new era of RBN post CJ is going to blow your guys' mind. We're going to be in the streets, and we're going to reach a plateau you guys didn't even think was possible in the old era. So the new era, we are running strong. I appreciate everyone who's supporting us. The RBN community will continue to grow. So thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. Peace out.